How to develop a $14.2 million project with no money. You're not going to believe it, but I had twins in 1992. I was 31 years old and I couldn't afford formula and diapers. I was like, I can't just keep working. I got to figure out how to do real estate. And I was working as a construction manager in New York City, and I'm like, how am I going to figure this out? So here, I couldn't sleep at night. I was watching people develop these projects. I was building them for it, and I finally started to connect the dots that, hey, these real estate developers were making all this money, and I guess you have to be born into the family to make it work. I started saying to myself, I'm never going to have this opportunity, until I started looking out as one of these buildings that I had built 30 stories at New York City and going, I can figure this out. How can I develop a project? First thing I'd have to do is find a piece of land, and I don't have any money, so how am I going to do it using other people's money? And it was this overwhelming thing at first until I just said, hey, I'm going to eat this elephant one bite at a time. And I started to think, if I could get a property in the pipeline that I could develop, I could actually pay myself. So here I start thinking, wow, a $10 million project, 5% development fee, that's $500,000. If I can lock up a property and control it with little or no money down, contingent upon approval, and pay myself over time $500,000, that would enable me to start business. That even kept me up later at night, and I started to think, hey, I don't have the equity. I might not be able to have a large percentage in that deal, but if I can get the fees and get a small percentage, that would enable me to get started. Big time development. I didn't know what to do. You've heard me talk about dream teams and surrounding myself with people and going and asking questions. Well, you're not going to believe it. I had hundreds of questions. How am I going to get control of a property? Who actually has development projects? Is it an architect? Is it an engineer? Do you go to the town? There was so many questions in my mind. How do you put a project together? Now, I knew construction and I knew how to build it, and I just kept saying to myself, you can do this. You can do this. Don't give up. Who do you need to learn? What's the next step? And I started this journey, and even while I was working, late at night, I would teach myself a little bit about development, about the development process, but what I really focused on was how was I going to find the money? And this was key. You're not going to believe it. One day, my mother-in-law, and we didn't have the greatest relationship, invites me to a golf outing. I felt guilty because I didn't even have money to afford to go to a golf outing. But I figured, my wife says, hey, go have some lunch, enjoy yourself. I go out on this golf outing, I start dreaming about it, and I'm like, wow, if I could ever join a country club, I would be around people that had money. Then I could tell them my story, that I'm going to be a developer, and I would give them opportunities to invest their money and get a rate of return that they would lend me the money. And I had this thinking, and I was daydreaming. I keep playing golf, and sure enough, at the end of that golf round, they had an executive special for $5,000, and I go home and I convince my wife to let me join. Sure enough, I start playing golf at the country club. My fourth round, I meet this guy, and I start telling him the story. You're not going to believe it. He lends me $100,000, and that got me started. Now, I'm like, wow, honey, I think I'm going to leave my job in New York City and take this $100,000 and go buy my first property. She says, you're crazy, but sure enough, I started dreaming about it again and dreaming about it again, and I wasn't going to give up. And I started talking to architects and engineers, and when I spoke to this one architect, he goes, go talk to this dentist. This dentist has a 12-acre lot in Bridgewater, New Jersey, where you can build an assisted living. I'm like, you have to be kidding me. I go see the dentist. The next thing you know, he's telling me I have this lot. Let's go walk the lot. I have a certificate of need to build an assisted living facility, and it's probably going to cost about $15 million. Bam! That was my dream came true. I had been dreaming about this thing for so many months, and sure enough, now I lock up a property for $14.2 million that I was going to develop, and I have to start the approval process. I write a letter of intent. We get it all signed up. I go to the lawyer. Next thing you know, I have control of the property. Now what do? I start to surround myself with a dream team. I hire an architect. I hire a civil engineer. I hire a planner, a traffic guy. They say, we're going to put this big plan together and we're going to go do this horse and pony show in front of the planning board and we're going to get you approvals. And once you get the approvals, that property is going to be worth a lot more money. Well, sure enough, I get this property for no money down and I get approvals and all of a sudden it's worth $1.2 million. I couldn't believe it. How did I do that? I had to raise money to get to that, to get the approvals. How did I raise the money? I didn't have any experience. I just kept asking my mentors, mirroring, modeling. I met a few people. I said to myself, I have to raise $1.2 million. Like I said before, one bite of the elephant at a time. The first raise was $400,000. That $400,000 enabled me to pay myself $30,000 a month and hire the planners and the engineers and the architects to go get that approval. After I got the approval, it was worth $1.2 million, and then I was able to raise more money. So what did I do? I did a second raise for another $400,000. What did that money do? That enabled me to get the design documentations to prepare for construction. Now I started getting into my comfort zone because I knew construction. I didn't even know how I got to that point, but I had learned so much, and I was taking copious notes in order so that I can create this system which I could teach you one day. And that's what I started to do. And then after raising that $400,000 and getting all the design documentation, I filed that design documentation for approvals. And behind the scenes, what was I doing? Working on getting the financing. This was my first time, and you're not going to believe it. I found out that the New Jersey Economic Development Agency supported assisted living projects and actually funded these types of projects. Sure enough, I go down and I see the New Jersey EDA. I'm a new developer. They didn't even know I didn't really know what I was doing. I brought people with me that knew how to talk. I went there, told them about my project, and they were interested. The next thing you know, they're saying, yes, we can give you a $14.2 million, and we can get that money by selling municipal bonds. I didn't know anything about that. I knew about going to a bank and getting a loan. I didn't know you could sell municipal bonds to companies that invest and make a return on it, and that would actually provide money to my project. And the good news is there's all kinds of monies like that. There's grants. There's the EDA. There's the Housing Finance and Mortgage Authority. There's the Housing and Urban Development Authority. There's money that's given to veterans. There's money given to people that need money. You just have to have the resourcefulness to find those sources, and that's the key. So the beauty now is here. I'm sitting with my final raise, the money in place. All I had to do was raise $600,000, and the New Jersey EDA was going to give me the $14.2 million to break ground on that project. What did I do? I went to my sources in New York City. I was in construction. I started calling all my contractors saying, hey, I have this investment. You can actually be my partner in the construction. You can make money on your investment, and you're not going to believe it. Sure enough, one contractor writes me a check for $600,000, and we're off to the closing. And I can tell you more, but I'm so excited. And if you want to talk to one of my people direct, or even if you're real serious about real estate and talk to me direct, go to kenvanliew.com, sign up for a strategy session, take action today, and make it an outstanding day.